So if you're watching this interview anywhere else but within our private community, high ticket client attraction insider circle on Facebook, be sure to come join us. We're up to, I think right now, 509,000 members in our community. So be sure to come join us if you're not already a member. Now, with that being said, I have a great guest here today. Her name is Trudy Jones, and welcome, Trudy.
Hi, hello everybody. Hi, Justin.
Yes, nice to meet you. So I guess, what did you say you were located in the UK, right?
I'm in Devon, in United Kingdom, which is
Yeah.
southwest of England, right down in a tourist area, right by the sea, and by the moors as well. It's beautiful.
Okay, good. I haven't been over to the UK, but I definitely have a lot of friends out there. I know John Molyneux. He's a good friend, and he's out there as well too. So I guess, what is it that you do?
I'm a counsellor, therapist, a counsellor, psychotherapist. There's many names, but basically I'm a counsellor. So I help people with their problems.
Okay, good. And how long have you been a counsellor?
I've been a counsellor for, started training quite late in life, actually. So it shows that you're never too old to do something else. So I was kind of in my mid to late 40s when I started. So I've been doing it about 7 years.
Okay, perfect. Now, what got you into wanting to do this type of work?
Probably because I had issues that I needed to resolve myself, or certainly look at. And I think looking back, I was really curious about the way that we think and feel. But on reflection, I think I needed to work through a lot of stuff. So that was part of my process. But at the same time, I was training to be a therapist as well.
Yeah, okay, good. And I think we met in the Mind Valley group there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in terms of what your work looks like, in terms of how you work with clients, how does a typical, how does it look? Is it a virtual type of setting? Do you do it in person? How does your business look?
I work face to face. So at the moment, I'm having to use the medium of Zoom or whatever, but I can't see people face to face. But normally I'd be face to face with the client. I'm also a counselling tutor. So I teach people how to be professional counsellors over a 2-year higher diploma as well. So I've got two kind of threads to what I do.
Yeah. Also, you actually teach others how to be
I do. I teach counselling as well. Yeah.
That is really cool. Really cool.
Integrative counselling. So kind of drawing from different theory bases rather than just one.
Yeah. Now, how did you do? Is this a program you put together by yourself on your own? How did you?
No. I work for a company that's the largest counselling college in Devon, actually, or certainly one of them. So we've got over 200 students, so it's busy. Each class have about 15 students. So, yeah. So I teach some introduction to counselling through to foundation and then into advanced stuff. That's great. I love it. It's really good.
Yeah, perfect. Now tell us in terms of counseling, how does it, how does counseling, who would need counseling? Is counseling something everyone needs? Is a specific type of individual? Who typically needs counseling?
I suppose anyone that feels that they need it. I think everybody could benefit from counselling. I think there are times in our life where we can just hit a brick wall, or the way that we're living our life isn't working for us anymore. So, there's many, many personal reasons why people might go into counselling. But I think everyone could benefit from counselling. If you're open and willing, I think can be really transformative.
Yeah. And what's the difference between coaching and counseling? Would you say coaching and counseling is kind of like the same thing? Is there a difference? What would you say?
I think with coaching, and my understanding of coaching is that you might be advising and looking for areas to build on. I'm kind of thinking about science, about coaches that work in the field of sport and stuff. In counselling, we don't advise. We might signpost, but we don't advise. We listen to our clients. We work in a deeply therapeutic way. So I'm not I am championing my clients, but it's not in the same way as you would as a coach. I mean, it'd be great if we had a coach here now who could kind of say what they do as their job. But my understanding of it is that we're not prescriptive with what we think the steps that somebody should do.
And now,
although we facilitate awareness around habits and lifestyle choices and things like that. But,
yeah. And how
mhm.
does someone go about becoming a counselor?
I think it's slightly different in America. In England, you would start by maybe doing an introduction course and then a foundation qualification. Then after that, you can go into lots of routes. You can go into doing a higher diploma, you can do a degree. There are lots of different routes, but there is a sort of a standard that has to be met, a kind of government standard, and that's a higher diploma.
Hmm.
So kind of the journey takes 3-4 years, and then but you never stop learning, so you're continually building on that. So I've just done a diploma, a specialist diploma in psychotherapy, for example. So we're always building. Our work never ends.
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay. Now, in terms of, I guess, the benefits of counseling, the clients you work with, are they typically, is the counseling for personal, business? What type of counseling is it typically?
Personal,
Hmm.
yeah, tends to be personal. I've seen clients from 11 years old up until 80 years old.
Hmm.
Right across the board, men, women, lots of different areas, students through to people who may not identify with the body they're born into, through to anxiety and depression. I mean, really quite broad
Hmm.
spectrum of clients that come for counselling.
Yeah. And what
Mm-hmm.
about your vision for as far as why you do the work that you do? What vision do you have that you want to kind of bring, you want to see kind of like bring to fruition in a sense?
You mean for my clients or for myself?
Just for yourself.
Oh, for myself, I think if you go into this work, I think it's often because you're deeply curious, you have a kind of compassionate, empathic nature, that you want to help, but there's something about the curiosity of self that you're wanting to broaden and develop and grow yourself. So for me, it's a lifelong process of finding out about myself, and I learn so much through my clients. So it's definitely a two-way thing for
Hmm.
me. So I think my vision would be to keep facilitating the process, to grow and develop as a woman, um, to develop maybe some workshops around self-development. I'm really interested in lots of different aspects of spirituality. So, the world's my oyster. I'm
Hmm.
always curious and learning stuff.
Yeah. Now, what
Mm.
about because I'm guessing with counseling, it's there's a lot of human behavior, human psychology, and those types of things. In terms of insights wise, have you gotten any insights into just based on working with a lot of different people with
Mm.
counseling? Have you
Mm.
got any type of advice for someone who maybe would need counseling, or how would you know whether you should see a counselor or anything like that?
Mm. I think if you're starting to feel that there's something not quite right in your life, I'd probably recommend, if you've got friends that have used counsellors, you could perhaps find a counsellor through that route. But what I would say to do is to explore their background, have a look online, see what there is about them,
Hmm.
see what their training they've got, and also a good counsellor, I think, will offer some time, a session or a telephone conversation, just getting a feel for one another to see whether it feels right for you.
Hmm. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, what about clients wise? Is there a specific type of client you really enjoy working with?
I really like young people, I've got to say. I really enjoy all aspects of my work. At the moment, I'm working with 11 to 25-year-olds, and I'm really enjoying that. I love their open-mindedness. It's like, our brains are plastic, but they're really open and kind of, so much more so intelligent and open.
Hmm.
It's quite, sometimes it astounds me at their emotional intelligence and their deep knowing at really young ages, actually. So yeah, I really like working with young people.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I know in terms of because I'm pretty big into the whole, I guess, personal development. And would you say counseling has it is a big part of personal development as far as do the two kind of get together? because I know when I first started my journey, one of the things I've realized is that with limiting beliefs and all these different things, does counseling help with that type of stuff as well too?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, depends, there are different models you can work with. I am trained in cognitive behavioural therapy, so exploring negative beliefs, self-beliefs, negative thoughts, it's wonderful in a really practical way of working with that stuff. But, you know, sometimes the reason why it's good to be integrated or to be pluralistic or to have lots of different approaches is that you can pull in approaches that fit your client's needs rather than be limited by what you might only know.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of trust the process. My clients know, they're the experts on themselves, they know what they need. So I do use cognitive behavioural therapy sometimes, and often it threads in the work with other stuff I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
It's
So
really useful.
cognitive behavior therapy. How
Mm.
what do you use a whole bunch of different I guess types of therapies? Are there, do you use a bunch of different ones?
Yeah, you know, I do. When I trained in cognitive behavioural therapy, something called Gestalt, which kind of looks at blocked energy and using the body, it works very somatically.
Mm-hmm.
And I also work within the kind of model of person-centred counselling. Around that, I also like transaction analysis. I use the transpersonal. I'm really interested in dream work, artwork, object work. You know, we project our own, we attribute meaning to objects. That can be really fascinating work, sound tray work, I'm a really creative therapist, so I tend to work with the client and what their needs are, kind
Yeah.
of with them.
Yeah. Now, do you think there's any one therapy that works across the board for everyone?
Mm. Person-centered, yeah, for sure. I think, people, if they're really expert in their field, are going to know their stuff, aren't they? I mean, for me, one size doesn't fit all. So for me, I feel I need certain tools in my toolbox
Mm-hmm.
that I can bring out as and when. But the person-centered is a wonderful approach because that kind of builds the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy and non-judgment, and unconditional positive regard.
Yeah.
A non-judgment. So you have a wonderful base to start with there. But I think there is so much more that you can bring in, depending on your style of counselling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to suit every client. I'm really successful with some clients, and sometimes I can feel, I feel stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Or something isn't feeling quite right, and that's when it's important to know your limitations or to know when to refer somebody on.
Yeah. Now, would you say a big part of counseling is about getting someone to transform, getting someone to change? What would you say is the core?
It depends what their needs are, what their core needs are. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of like an alchemy. There is a transformation that take place by the very nature of the process, and sometimes it's really subtle, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you may not know it as a therapist. You may not be aware of what's happening. It might impact the person later
Mm-hmm.
in their process. But I think there is something innate within all of us that needs to self-actualize, and I think in the right environment, we can all flourish and be the very best versions of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes a therapist can help facilitate that process,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
or certainly be a seed. Some of us can relate to teachers at school, and that's like planting a seed of belief. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that we have the potential within us to be great.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about so I guess let's get a bit more specific now in terms of, let's say, someone comes to you, right? How do you how does success lie? The success, like, how does a typical person, so let's say, where does your interaction start with a person? So let's say someone is there and they come to you. What's a specific challenge that you might come to you for?
Again, it can be huge. I mean, often someone might come with a relationship issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start looking at and kind of exploring together. I mean, a good analogy for this is imagining that inside of your mind is this grey fog.
Mm-hmm.
And an analogy I might say with my clients is, let's step together, stand together in front of this fog, and let's see if we can find some pathways together. And through these pathways, maybe we'll find some signposts. And kind of, it's a really lovely analogy for clients at the beginning of their process. But, I don't always know where the therapy is going. In fact, often I don't know where it's going. And quite often the very aspect that a client brings isn't the problem at all. It can open up vicarious stuff, It's often interesting where therapy goes with what came with and where you end up. And it's not my agenda, it's my client's. So I've got to be always mindful that it isn't my agenda, that I'm not leading or, suggesting, that I'm in the process of really deeply listening to my clients and exploring their inner framework, their inner world.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah. So ultimately, with your model, you don't advise most of the time. I guess with the way you work is more based on like an exploration, like a discovery. So when a client is always different. You don't have any type of preset agenda saying, "Hey, here's the way I need to take you," or whatever. It's more coming from the client and their journey that they need to take, right?
No, that's absolutely, I don't have an agenda. I don't have a preset idea. Absolutely not. I've got my tools in my toolkit and my skills, and I can bring those out and try, with the client's agreement, we work together. We contract how we're going to work before we, work together.
Mm-hmm.
But, this is my client's journey. And yes, I'm there too. So there's something that happens between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why the relationship is everything.
Yeah. Now, so you said they come to you for like maybe a relationship problem. Like, is it typically really specific? Like, I'm having issues with my spouse or something, or like, is it that specific when someone comes to you?
It could be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, certainly. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And you basically just help facilitate them. So you're in a sense helping them come to their own conclusions, help them find the answers within themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of, and I guess it might be client specific, whatever, but do you find there's in terms of helping someone overcome a challenge, how do you work? Is it per sessions? How does an engagement look with you?
So when we first start, when we first make an appointment and a client comes to see me, then we will contract how we're going to work. And it might be that it might be 6 sessions, it might be 20 sessions, it might be longer, it might be less. It depends. I'm not prescriptive. It depends what the client's need is. Sometimes there are very complex issues, and sometimes it's kind of everyday stuff. And so sometimes a client might come for 6 sessions and feel, I feel great. I've had enough. I feel like I'm where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
There was something I was going to say, and it's gone out of my head now that you just said. Oh, yeah. Linking back to, so if I was working in a person-centered way, I'd be non-directive, but I am more directive if I'm using Gestalt cognitive behavioural therapy or some of the other approaches. So that doesn't mean I don't challenge, because if it's going to be therapeutic for the client and important, and I feel that challenge needs to come into play, then I will challenge. So it's not a passive session of me sitting there just listening to a client. It's very much more alive than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, are there any types of maybe therapies, maybe types of counseling that you don't believe in, that you try to say, okay, that's not the approach? Are there any of those types of stuff?
I'm really open-minded. I think there's probably value in everything. So I'd be really open-minded and curious about it, if I'm honest. you know, so for me, in all the, you know, the positive, healthy therapies, I think there's therapies. I think there is benefits in lots of different types of therapy out there. And just because I don't know about it doesn't mean that it's not going to be useful for somebody. So be open-minded, as long as we're not doing any harm and we're not telling people how they should live their life or telling them an aspect of themselves is wrong. Then I believe that lots of different types of therapy and traditions can be really useful.
Yeah, awesome. Love it, love it. Yeah, because I know that because of what I do, I basically specialize in helping more the coaches, the consultants get high ticket clients within their businesses. And I know for myself, one of the things I had to overcome because I realized that there's two parts to that growing a business. There's the techniques, which is what do you do? Like, how do you get the clients to come to you on those different types of things? But then the second thing is the internal, like what happens on the internal, like how do you process information? How do you feel about what you're doing, all these different things? And I know myself going through that journey, there's, I guess you could call it counseling and stuff like that, but I know I had to do a lot of kind of like personal development type of work where it's like, hey, you gotta work on yourself. So I guess my question is, do you believe that it's possible to like do counseling on yourself, or do you feel like it's always better to have an expert, someone else out there to help you on that journey?
I think, I mean, we have to have supervision. We call it supervision in Britain. So we have to talk about our work. It's also really ethical to have counselling and support around your work. So I think that's really important, absolutely, because we have blind spots. So I need someone to help me spot my blind spots in my work. As far as doing counselling on myself, then yeah, there are times when I will use lateral thought. Absolutely, I'll challenge myself from using a certain thought or a pattern of behaviour. Yeah, and I journal. I think that that deep reflective practice, commitment to that is really, really important. Peeling the layers of the onion and getting deep into the core. And as you get to the core, there's even more. We keep on peeling. And yeah, absolutely, because we have transference, we have, there's so much that potentially goes on in us as the therapist. We've got the work with the client, but then there's the other aspect of us observing ourselves in the work. All of this stuff comes into play. So we need, we need good people around us, skilled good people around us to help support that process. And also to be committed to looking at our own stuff. Absolutely. I think that's part of being, a self-aware therapist. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good. Now, if someone wants to get in touch with you, like what type of, maybe someone listening to this interview here and they were like, man, what Trudy said here is, it's pretty interesting. I would love to learn more. So I guess the question becomes now, how would someone find out more about you, your work, and what you do?
They can email me and ask me. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I can give information about where I work, and if they want any more information, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, what about are there any specific instances there might be in their life, maybe some specific places that they could be problems, challenges that they're facing that you can maybe talk about for them to know, okay, this is what I should probably reach out to Trudy. And you mentioned relationship problems. What different types of problems?
Sometimes loss of something. Loss isn't just death of a spouse or a family member or somebody that we know. Loss can open lots of other losses, a vicarious loss, and that can be really disorientating and difficult to navigate. So I've done quite a bit of bereavement counselling, but loss is loss, we have the loss of freedom at the moment. That can open up a whole load of challenges. In relationships, being in a confined space with someone that we love or maybe we don't love, and all of the stuff, all the realizations about ourselves or the person that may rise to the surface in a situation where you know, there's nowhere to go. You're at home, you got your hour's walk, but actually you're at home with this person and feeling really triggered. So sometimes just talking to somebody or just writing an email can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Love it,
Mm.
love it. Awesome, Jude. Trudy,
Mm.
well, hey, appreciate it so much. So I guess before we sign off here, do you have any final words to kind of share?
Oh gosh, final words. Well, I'm feeling quite nervous actually.
Mhm.
Final words. Well, just, you know, love to everybody watching, and to kind of trust the process, and, you know, be good to yourself, be kind to yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it so much. And guys, if what Trudy shared with you here resonates, I would highly recommend reach out to her. I'll put her contact details right below this video. So if anything resonates, be sure to reach out. Okay, well, with that being said, Trudy, hey, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank
You
you.
definitely shared some awesome wisdom here, and we'll definitely be in touch, okay?
Yeah. Thanks so much, Justin. Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.